Welcome to Low Tier Fun Tier, where I take a look at a Rank 1 lineup for a nation in War Thunder and pick out my favorite vehicles. Let's check out the French Air Tree. I'm gonna pick out my favorite fighter, bomber, striker, and premium aircraft in Rank 1 of the French Air Tree and take them into the chaos of arcade battles, since that's what everybody does at Rank 1. My first pick is the MS-406C1. This was, numerically, the most important French fighter of World War II, and also one of the fastest. At the end of the 1930s, the French aviation industry was working hard on a number of projects, trying to keep parity with new developments in Germany, England, and elsewhere. The MS-405, which first flew in 1935, was a significant upgrade compared to the French designs that were in service at the time, but its development was very slow, with the 406 only entering service at the beginning of 1939. While the plane was quite capable on its own, it didn't compete well with the German Bf-109s it ended up fighting against, but it was still produced after the armistice, and it was even exported to almost a dozen countries. In War Thunder, the MS-406C1 has some great features, but also a few handicaps. The 20mm cannon it carries delivers a good amount of firepower for a Rank 1 plane, but it only has one, and combined with the two light machine guns, the overall burst mass is still kinda low. And considering that the cannon only gets 60 rounds of ammo, you might need to be picky with your shots. It retains energy very well in dogfights, and it's quite agile. However, it doesn't take much to shoot one of these down, and even a few hits from low-caliber machine gun fire can be really dangerous and cause a lot of damage. It gets pretty bad control compression at high speeds, and it doesn't have combat flaps, but overall, this is still a great fighter for Rank 1. Next is the Farman F-222-2 bomber. This enormous aircraft used a highly unusual engine layout, with 4 engines arranged in push-pull pods under the wings. The original version of this plane first flew in 1932, and it showed enough potential to be developed into a few more upgraded versions, including the 222, which was by far the most widely used model of the plane. The 222-2 had upgraded engines, a new nose layout, and slightly rearranged internals. Now, this plane may look a bit ridiculous to modern eyes, but it was one of the longest-ranged heavy bombers in the world back in its day, and it carried a bomb load comparable to some of the mainstay heavy bombers of World War II. In War Thunder, this plane has a reputation for being enormously effective in low-tier battles, and that reputation is well-earned. Because of all the empty space in its design, it can sometimes take an enormous amount of hits from low-caliber guns to bring this thing down. It can also fly at very high altitudes for a Rank 1 plane, and it has defensive gun turrets that can threaten interceptors. Its bomb load is enormous for Rank 1, and if flown carefully, this thing can win matches all by itself. However, it's still a huge, slow, lumbery bomber that doesn't really have very good flight performance. It's easy to hit in air combat, and it doesn't have any armor protection at all for the engines. Overall, this is one of the most effective Rank 1 bombers in the game. Next is my pick for a strike aircraft, the BR-693AB2. This plane was a classic example of an aircraft that was just built to do too many jobs. With initial expectations that it would be able to perform as an interceptor, then it was tweaked to be a low-level bomber, and the final version ended up being roughly in a very large class of twin-engine ground attack planes from the late 1930s. The French intended to use it as a low-level close air support bomber during the opening phases of World War II, but that ended up being a bit of a disaster in early battles, so tactics were adapted to use the plane in makeshift dive bombing attacks. But, well, the plane just didn't have the right kind of bomb sight for that, and it was horribly ineffective. In the end, the plane was basically a failure during World War II, similarly to a lot of other twin-engine multi-role props from the same pre-war period. In War Thunder, on the other hand, this plane ends up being quite good. It has solid offensive firepower concentrated in the nose, and better maneuverability than you'd expect from a twin-engine prop like this. The bombs it carries are small, only 50 kilograms, but it gets 8 of them, which is enough to do a lot of damage with carefully aimed drops. And you can actually rack up some large kill tallies on AI ground units in low-tier arcade battles with this plane. Its rear gunner ends up being reasonably useful, but the plane is very lightly armored, and it still ends up being kinda easy to shoot down. Its rate of climb isn't very good, but really, that doesn't matter much, as this thing is far more effective when it ends up being used for low-level interdiction and close air support. It may not be the best at what it does, but it's still really good and a lot of fun. Lastly, my pick for a premium, Polyer's D510. The D500 series was a family of all-metal, low-wing monoplane fighters developed in France during the early 1930s, with the first example flying in 1932. This plane was very advanced for its time, and competitive with foreign designs from the same period. It had a huge, powerful engine, good pilot comfort, and was considered pretty easy to fly. The problem was that it entered service right at a time when more foreign manufacturers were shifting to designs with retractable undercarriages and far more advanced aerodynamics, so while it was pretty advanced when it first flew, it was completely outclassed by the time World War II broke out. Now, in War Thunder, the plane is an outstanding dogfighter that combines good agility, good acceleration, and centerline guns that are very easy to aim. Like the fighter and striker I picked, it carries a 20mm cannon and 2 smaller machine guns. Not the heaviest punch, but the ability to concentrate the hits makes it really easy to shoot down targets with this thing. However, the plane doesn't have any armor for the pilot, and it's got a bit of a low ammo count for the cannon, along with not having flaps of any kind. Overall, this is an excellent dogfighter that's very well suited to the chaos of low-tier arcade battles, and it can be an incredibly effective grinder with only a little bit of practice. Well, that about wraps up low-tier fun tier for the French air tree. I hope you enjoyed this look at my favorite low-B French planes. As always, thanks for watching.